Ed 211 class. The topic I would like to discuss with you today is at-risk youth. Many do not understand what it is like to live with that label or understand what circumstances arise to make that label a reality for so many children and teens. The first item I will show is a clip from the popular movie Freedom Riders. This film depicts many at-risk students of varying degrees and backgrounds. In this scene, Miss Gruel is seen having a meeting with her advising teacher, Mrs. Campbell. Miss Gruel has big things in store for her freshman literature class that includes extensive reading and comprehension assignments. Miss Campbell explains that her plans will not work due to the lack of reading skills that her future class possesses.
Here's your coffee.
Thank you. I brought my lesson plans. I'd love it if you'd look them over.
Yes. And these are the classes you'll start with. Freshman English, 4 classes, about 150 students in all. Some of them are just out of juvenile hall. 1 or 2 might be wearing ankle cuffs to monitor their whereabouts. And you see here, we'll have to revise your lesson plans. And if you look at their scores, these vocabulary lessons, some of these, the books, Homer's The Odyssey, are going to be too difficult for them.
All right.
Also, for most of them to get here, it takes 3 buses, almost 90 minutes each way.
My God.
So I wouldn't give them too much of a homework load. You'd just be wasting a lot of time following up on overdue work.
All right. Thank you.
You're from Newport Beach?
Yes.
It's too bad you weren't here even 2 years ago, you know. We used to have one of the highest scholastic records in the district, but since voluntary integration was suggested, we've lost over 75% of our strongest students.
Well, actually, I chose Wilson because of the integration program. I think what's happening here is really exciting, don't you? My father was involved in the civil rights movement, and I remember when I was watching the LA riots on TV, I was thinking of going to law school at the time, and I thought, God, by the time you're defending a kid in a courtroom, the battle's already lost. I think the real fighting should happen here in the classroom.
Well, that's a very well thought out phrase. Erin, I think you're a lovely, intelligent woman, you know, but you're a first-time teacher. As head of this department, I have to be confident you're capable of dealing with what we have to face here.
I am. I know I have a lot to learn as a teacher, but I'm a really good student. I am, and I really want to be here.
Those are lovely pearls.
Oh, thank you. From my father.
I wouldn't wear them to class.
At-risk is the term used for anyone who could have problems outside of school that could negatively affect their success in school. At-risk youth often are at risk for incomplete assignments, poor grades, behavioral issues within the classroom, and possible problems later in life. Next, let's take a look at the causes and risk factors. There are many factors that place students in the category that put them at risk of developing academic issues. The most prevalent factor is poverty. Poverty is linked to a large array of problems that include crime, violence, physical abuse, as well as emotional, behavioral, or learning problems. Unfortunately, even though the United States is known as a developed country, we still have a poverty rate that is higher than 22 other developed countries in the world. In 2007, it was gathered that 18% of children 0 to 17 live in poverty. Furthermore, the poverty rates for Black and Hispanic youth is 3 times higher than that of their Caucasian counterparts. A study done by Strand and Lindsay has concluded that socioeconomic distress may have a direct correlation with the development of a child. Under the same token, hunger is another main cause for concern in the classroom. In the United States, 17% of all children live with food insecurities, meaning they are not ever sure where their next meal is coming from. This pandemic can lead to malnutrition, which in turn negatively affects the development of a child's neurological system. The malnutrition in these children will also go unnoticed in as many as 11% of children ages 0 to 17 due to the lack of health insurance that is available to them. The U.S. has shown progress in decreasing diseases such as polio and whooping cough, but the health of many American children is still below that of other countries. The poor health that American children face can cause them to miss school and fall behind academically. The final aspect of poverty that can put a child at risk is homelessness. While it may be shocking for a teacher to find out that one of his or her students is suffering from homelessness, it is really not a surprise that as many as 43% of U.S. households have housing challenges, meaning that they are not able to afford their current housing, experience crowding, or unsafe or unsanitary living conditions. When many people hear the word homeless, they assume it means that the person is living on the street with no shelter. The federal definition of homelessness, however, has multiple conditions. It is anyone who lacks fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence, someone that has primary nighttime residence in a publicly or privately owned shelter that provides temporary living accommodations. That includes welfare hotels, shelters, or transitional housing. And finally, someone who finds a regular nighttime residence in a place that is not regular sleeping arrangements for a human being. The children that experience homelessness firsthand are twice as likely to develop health problems, which can again affect the attendance of a child in the classroom. As a future band director myself, poverty is a huge concern in the classroom. There will not always be enough school instruments that can be rented for an affordable cost, which leaves most children to purchase their own instruments that can sometimes cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Even if there is a school instrument available for rental, it still costs around $20 or $30 for the year. A parent may not even have the spare $20 or $30 to even pay for this. Another problem I may face as a future band director is that on concert days, the predetermined attire for concert is usually dress shoes, dresses, ties, or dress clothes. And they're not always readily accessible for families that live in poverty. I may have students coming to the concert in jeans, t-shirts, and tennis shoes merely because they are not able to afford the proper dress code. Freedom Writers depicts almost every category of at-risk students. One that may not even cross our minds is refugees. With the wars and violence that many countries face, many people find safety in the United States. These refugees fear for their life because of racial or religious persecution in their home country. Problems educators face is providing effective education for these students. Like poverty-stricken students, refugees may face the same issues. It is estimated that half of all new marriages will end in divorce. With that in mind, another situation that may cause problems in the classroom is a child having a single-parent home. Single-parent homes include unwed mothers or fathers, death of a parent, significant illness of a parent that is not present due to incarceration, or divorce. During and after a divorce finalization, a child may exhibit all different kinds of feelings to cope with the breakup. Many of these feelings include guilt, anxiety, grief, anger, and hostility. The children involved may also display social or behavioral problems. Depending on the school district, you may not see as many poverty-stricken or refugee students, but with the statistic of half of all marriages ending in divorce, it is almost imminent that you will have a child in your classroom that has or will experience divorced parents. In a single-parent home, the child may feel like they have had a significant loss due to the absence of a parent. Sometimes the feeling of significant loss pertains to another loved one in the child's life. In earlier centuries, children would often have extended family living under one roof with them. Children would live with their parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents. Children would experience death more often than with extended family. Now, with families, children are often insulated from death. When children lose a loved one, it is usually a very traumatic experience for them because death is no longer a regular occurrence in their home. Abuse or neglect by a parent, guardian, or caregiver is another risk factor for a student. First and foremost, if you ever discover evidence that leads you to believe that there is neglect or physical and emotional abuse going on in a child's home, that is something that absolutely needs to be reported to proper school personnel, such as someone in the school's administration. The administration will then alert proper authorities to handle the situation. As an educator, it is our duty to keep our students safe. We are mandatory reporters. Abuse or neglect should never be tolerated and can do traumatic damage to a young child's emotional and physical well-being. Some common effects that may lead one to believe neglect or abuse is going on in the home includes bruises, welts, swelling, sprains, fractures, burns, scrapes, cuts, difficulty walking or sitting, torn or blood-stained clothing, lack of adequate supervision or nutrition, poor hygiene, and inappropriate attire for the weather. Many studies completed about early childhood development indicate that the brain develops in direct response to experiences with caregivers, family, or other people of the community that they may come in contact with. Brain development of children is specifically linked to the quality and quantity of their experiences with those individuals. Emotional stability and security is extremely important for a child's healthy brain development. Without that healthy brain development, children may struggle academically. Substance abuse is another one of the many factors that can infinitely place students at risk in the classroom. Substance abuse refers to the improper or illegal use of alcohol and drugs, as well as the use of tobacco. In 2013, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey reported that 35% of teens grades 9th through 12th have drank at some point in the past month. 21% reported that they have taken part in binge drinking. 10% of teens have gotten into the driver's seat after drinking, and over twice that percentage of drunk driving teens, nearly 22%, have gotten into a vehicle with someone else behind the wheel who has been drinking. Even after many years of strenuous drug abuse education by educators and by law enforcement, the use of alcohol and other drugs has not been affected. Furthermore, while high school seniors have decreased drug and alcohol use percentages, the percentages shown for 8th grade students that abuse drugs and alcohol have increased significantly. While there are no proven factors that will lead a child to turn to drugs and alcohol, there are some more apparent causes in increasing the likelihood of teens partaking in alcohol or drug use. Among one of the most influential factors is parental involvement. When parents are past or current drug users, have lax attitudes towards drug use, or have poor communication with their teens, the children involved will develop attitudes that could allow drug use to become more likely. Peer pressure is also a heavy influence on the youth of today. One of the most heavily displayed categories of at-risk youth that Freedom Riders exhibits is juvenile delinquents and those who are affiliated with gangs. Quite often, teens that partake in criminal activity are also affiliated with gangs or are gang members themselves. Some recent media reports have noted that as many as 1 in every 100 Americans are or will be incarcerated at some point in their lifetime, meaning that America's incarceration rate is higher than any other place in the world. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, it is stated that as many as 75% of Americans incarcerated will be sent back to jail within 5 years of their first release date. Jail time is a huge part of the issues that many at-risk students will experience now or later in their life. In Freedom Riders, there is a pivotal moment where Miss Gruel discovers that nearly all of her students have been affected by gang violence. Let's check it out.
We're gonna play a game, all right? It's a lot of fun, I promise. Look, you can either sit in your seats reading those workbooks or you can play a game. Either way, you're in here till the bell rings, okay? This is called the line game. I'm gonna ask you a question. If that question applies to you, you step onto the line and then step back away for the next question. Easy, right? The first question. How many of you have the new Snoop Dogg album? Okay, back away. Next question. How many of you have seen Boys in the Hood? Okay, next question. How many of you live in the projects? How many of you know someone, a friend or relative, who was or is in juvenile hall or jail? How many of you have been in juvenile hall or jail for any length of time?
Does the refugee camp count?
You decide. How many of you know where to get drugs right now? How many of you know someone in a gang? How many of you are gang members? Okay, that was a stupid question, wasn't it? Yeah. Not allowed gang affiliations in school. I apologize for asking, my badness. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a more serious question. Stand on the line if you've lost a friend to gang violence. Stay on the line if you've lost more than one friend. 3. 4 or more. Okay, I'd like us to pay respect to those people now. Wherever you are, just speak their name. Thank you all very much.
Just like the students in Miss Gruwell's class, everyone has some type of emotional baggage that they have weighing on their mind. After the kids in Miss Gruwell's class played the line game, she gave each of her students a journal that they could track their daily activities in and write down something maybe that was weighing heavily on them that day. We're kind of going to do an activity that's like that, except instead of writing it in a journal, we're going to tell it directly to another person. I think this activity fits perfectly for at-risk students because they need to be immersed in the general classroom setting, and also being paired with their peers is very beneficial for their overall learning experience. I know sometimes kids aren't very inclusive as you hope they would be, but I know as a future band director myself, I know I will try my best to make every one of my students feel included in my band room. However, with limited funding in schools, it will be difficult to find instruments for kids that won't be able to afford them. I know this will be one issue I will definitely need to evaluate and change in my classroom to make it a more positive, inclusive setting for everyone, regardless of their financial situation. Alright, here's how the game's gonna go. This is a game that a class can play on their first day of school. The teacher will have to make the partners so that no one feels left out. One partner will be partner A, and the other will be partner B. Partner A will start out explaining something bad that happened in their past. This bad event can be school-related, but it doesn't have to be. It also could be something personal, but make sure it is appropriate. Partner A will have 3 or 4 minutes to think of a bad experience that they've had and share it with their partner. Then, after partner A is done telling their story, partner B will have 3 or 4 minutes to explore and discuss the good things that came from that bad situation. This activity gives a positive way for a student to let go of a negative attitude or emotional hardship that they may have. And then afterwards, the partners will switch roles after completing the first part. I will give an example. I'm partner A.
I'm Jared, and I am partner B.
I will start by telling Jared a story of something bad that's happened in my life. So, Jared, I have this dog named Foxy, and she's really old. She's getting to the point where she can't hold it to go to the bathroom anymore, and it's really annoying to have to clean up after her all the time. We've tried everything. We tried to let her out every half hour. We tried to lock her in her kennel. Nothing works. I mean, I don't know.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
I don't know.
You could always put your dog in a doggy diaper.
That's a good idea. I guess it's not all bad. What about your story?
Well, one night I was coming home from a dorm room at college, and I got going a little too fast. Let's just say the popo was right there to get me.
Really?
Yeah. Gave me a ticket for $118. I learned my lesson.
See? That's good. You learned your lesson. Not only did you learn your lesson, but you also had a job to pay for the ticket, right?
Yeah,
And he didn't give you a bigger ticket, right?
he should have.
He could have and he should have, but he didn't, right?
What a nice guy.
Yep. Many causations and risk factors go into making a child less likely to succeed in school or later in life. The factors we have discussed today have been poverty and the implications that surround it, refugees, single-parent homes, significant losses, abuse, neglect, drug use, gang violence, and juvenile delinquency. Other risk factors may include teens that identify with the LGBTQ community and those who have experienced teen pregnancy. Education for at-risk students would not be effective unless the educator is learning and growing with his or her students. Professional development is important in improving teaching practices to apply in the classroom. As a teacher of an at-risk student, one of the main tools that will help students become successful is encouraging the student to overcome adversity. Even with some of the most horrible home situations, a child may be able to excel in the classroom with the support of a teacher. Throughout the duration of a career, it is only natural that teachers will be drawn to certain students over others. This natural instinct is one that absolutely needs to be subsided. Equality needs to be upheld in the classroom. Playing favorites is not beneficial for anyone involved. Next, let's explore some helpful tips and teaching practices that will improve the quality of education for at-risk students. Many teachers avoid pushing at-risk students in fear of putting them behind even further. But by not urging students to work hard, it may have adverse effects on their academic development. A strategy to keep at-risk children engaged in learning is to spark their interest through their culture and prior knowledge. Children feel more confident in their abilities when they are learning something that stems directly from previous knowledge or when they are learning something that applies to their life. Another way to help at-risk students to become successful is to use multiple instructional and assessment methods to find which of the multiple intelligences the students will find the most success with. There are extracurricular activities that also can help at-risk students excel in the classroom. Let's take a look. There are 4 types of programs that are especially helpful for at-risk youth. The first is prevention programs. Prevention programs focus on teaching skills and behavior that are more likely to deter negative factors. Prevention programs are frequently offered for young children before they are exposed to all the negativity. These programs also expand into the adolescent years and keep the young teens away from drugs, alcohol, and illegal activity. Some prevention programs are for teens that have already started partaking in illegal activity, drugs, and alcohol. This type of program is designed to eventually bring those individuals away from the bad behavior. The next 2 types of programs are education compensatory and transition programs. Education compensatory programs are much like prevention programs